How about Zone 4?
Mr. Buffett, my name is Hutch Vernon. I'm from Baltimore, Maryland. I know that you read lots and lots of annual reports, and I'm curious what you are reading for, if you would share that with us. But I'm more curious, because I think I know what you're reading for, if there are any disclosures, any further disclosures that you would like to see companies make in their financial reporting, or that the SEC require in financial reporting or proxies or other communications with their shareholders. And that would be for both you and for Mr. Munger.
Yeah, the main thing that they can't mandate in annual reports, I really like to have, I like to know as much as I can about the person that's running it and how they think about the business and what's really going on in the business. In other words, I would like to have a report that would be identical to what if I to have a report that would be identical to what if I owned half of a company but was away for a year and I had a partner who owned the other half. When I came back, all coming up and all of that, of the report is now the SEC mandates a lot of information and some of that is helpful. But there's an intent behind the report. I mean, if it's a sales document, I'm less interested. I don't see any way to mandate what I'm talking about, but that's the kind of report I'm looking for. What I'm trying to do as I read reports, I like to understand just generally what's going on in all kinds of businesses. If we own stock in a company, in an industry, and there are 8 other companies that are in the same industry, I want to own or be on the mailing list for the reports for the other 8, because I can't understand how my company is doing unless I understand what the other 8 are doing. I want to have the perspective of, in terms of market share or what's going on in the business or their margins or the trend of margins or all kinds of things that I can't get unless I know. I can't be an intelligent owner of a business unless I know what all the other businesses in that industry are doing. And so I try to get that information out of a report. If I'm thinking about investing in a specific company, I try to size up their business and the people that are running it. And over the years, I found reading a lot of reports to be quite useful in terms of making business decisions at Berkshire. If we own a whole of a business, I want to own shares in all of the competitors just to keep track of what's going on, and I want to be able to intelligently evaluate how our managers are doing that, and I can't do that unless I know the industry backdrop against which they're working. It's amazing, how well you can do in investing really with what I would call outside information. I find inside information, I'm not sure how useful that is, but outside information, there's all kinds of information around as to businesses, and you don't have to understand all of them. You just have to understand the ones that you're thinking about getting in, and you can do it if you just. But nobody will do it for you. You can't read. In my view, you can't read Wall Street reports and get anything out of them. You have to do it yourself and get your arms around it. I don't think we've ever gotten an idea, in 40 years from a Wall Street report, but we've gotten a lot of ideas from annual reports. Charlie?
What I find is that it takes a long time to read the annual report, even if it's a comparatively simple business. Because if you really are trying to understand it, it's not a bit easy.
Yeah, I would say that on average in a business we're really interested in, even though we know what to skip to some extent, what to read, I mean, it's going to be 45 minutes or an hour on a report, and if there are 6 or 8 companies in the industry, that's going to be 6 or 8 hours perhaps, and then there are quarterlies and a lot of other. I mean, the way you learn about businesses is by absorbing information about them, thinking it, deciding what counts and what doesn't count, relating one thing to another, and that's the job. And you can't get that by looking at a bunch of little numbers on a chart bobbing up and down about or reading market commentary and periodicals or anything of the sort. That just won't do it. You've got to understand the businesses. That's where it all begins and ends. Zone 5.
Mr. Buffett, my name is Hank Strickland. I'm from Fairfax, Virginia, which if it were a city would be the 10th largest in the United States. I'm here as a stockholder, and my daughter, who's also my broker, is here with me. We were also out there Friday night when we watched you warming up for the beginning of the ball game, and we noted that you didn't drop the ball. You seemed to be able to get it to the guy that was warming you up. We noticed your first pitch, which I had difficulty characterizing as either being a pass ball or a wild pitch.
It was a premature sinker, actually. Very, very hard to hit, I might add.
And then you moved sprightly into the stands, did a lot of picture taking, photo opportunities, signed autographs, vaulted over a rail or two, and we noted with great enthusiasm your fitness. Now, that all having been said, many people would characterize Berkshire as a one-man company, with all due respect to Charlie. And many of us in this audience here, I'm sure, are retired or semi-retired. It's not unthinkable that perhaps you might want to retire, or for good God's sake.
It's unthinkable.
Unthinkable.
I don't want that one to go by.
or for something worse could happen. And for those
That would be the worst. I think.
Well,
I think death would be second.
I could think of some things some of us might want to do to protect our sizable investments, say, having owned Berkshire since blue chip stamp days. But anyway, we could put in a stop order, might take out an insurance policy. We might ask Charlie to masquerade as Warren after you moved on. Those don't seem like very attractive options. I'm very serious now.
Yeah.
How would you respond to the question of a stockholder that's really concerned about Berkshire being a one-man show?
Yeah, well, Berkshire is not a one-man show. It's a two-man show in terms of capital allocation. There's no question about that at present. But it's run by many managers that are doing an outstanding job and that don't need any guidance from Charlie or me as they go along. But I might say that, I will die with all of my Berkshire stock, essentially, and that stock will be held either in the family or in a foundation, depending on the order of death, for a long time thereafter. So there's no one that's more concerned about the subsequent management issue than I. I mean, this is not something that ends at all on my death, and it doesn't end for the Buffett family or the Buffett Foundation. So it's a subject that Charlie and I have both thought about. The most likely situation, you got to get away from the idea that it's a one-man show, because right now we've got 33,000 people working for Berkshire out there, as we speak. And I'm sitting around, watching movies about myself or something. I mean, you can see how vital I am to the place. But the question, and the other thing we do besides allocate capital is we do identify these managers and hopefully we make it attractive for them to stay and work for Berkshire. But that doesn't require 150 IQ or anything to do that. It does require a certain sensitivity to why people want to get up in the morning and do what they do. And when I'm not around, the logical, at some point, depends on exactly when it happens, but Charlie's a little older than I am, and it's likely that it will be broken into a two-person function again, but not exactly the way Charlie and I function, and that is that there will be someone in charge of investments and capital allocation. I mentioned Lou Simpson's position because he is younger than I am in the annual report, and then someone in charge of operations, and we have that person in the organization now. Now, I don't know what the situation will be when I die, because it could be in 20 minutes or it could be in 20 years, and when that, so I can't specifically name the individuals. We have the individuals now for both those functions. We'll have the individuals for the same functions 20 years from now. I don't know whether they'll be the same people. But it's quite a logical way to run the business. GEICO was run that way and still is run that way and has been for some years. It's always struck me as terribly illogical the way property casualty insurance companies are run, because they've been dominated by the underwriting side of the business, and here they have this important investment side. But it's always been, virtually every company's been subservient to the underwriting end. GEICO very logically set up a co-CEO arrangement some years back where originally Bill Snyder and before that, but Tony Nicely ran the underwriting end of the business, and Lou Simpson ran the investment side, and those are two very different functions. Same person logically doesn't fit both functions in most cases. I mean, it's a rarity when the same person happens to hit for both functions. So GEICO worked very well that way, still works that way. Lou runs investments, Tony runs underwriting, and Berkshire, slightly different. It's a variant on it, but essentially at Berkshire headquarters you need someone overseeing and not meddling in them too much, but making sure you've got the right manager and you're treating them fairly. You need someone on the operating side. You need someone on the investment and capital allocation side. We've got those people now, and we'll have them, whenever it happens too. But that is the structure, and we've got some very good businesses. And nobody's buying See's Candy because they think I'm sitting in some office in Omaha, and no one's buying a GEICO insurance policy because my name is there as chairman or CEO. The businesses are marvelous businesses. They'll continue very well, and there will be a capital allocation problem then, just like there is now, and there will be the problem of keeping good managers in place and treating them fairly, and that's a solvable problem. So that's the future as seen from Kiewit Plaza. Charlie?
Yes, if you just run your mind through all the assets, I think you will quickly decide that there are large momentums in place that would do very well without us. Is Coca-Cola going to suddenly stop selling because some manager's dead at Berkshire Hathaway? Are the people going to stop using Gillette razor blades? Is GEICO suddenly going to stop being intelligently run? Is the Nebraska Furniture Mart going to try any less hard? So the existing assets, you can argue, have been lovingly put together so as not to require continuing intelligence at headquarters. And what there would be a disadvantage in that I think would be unreasonable to expect that a successor would be as good at making new investments as Warren has been in the past. Well, that's just too damn bad.
The sympathetic ear over here. Let's see, where are we? Zone 6 now? Or,
Mr. Buffett, I'm indebted to Walter Schluss for introducing me to you some 40 years ago, and finally in the early 80s I became a stockholder. My question is, now that you've expanded headquarters 9% from 11 people to 12 people, do you now more frequently answer letters from stockholders? As a specific, had you looked at my letter from January 1986?
we haven't gotten to January yet.
Relating to Cap Cities, ABC, and Talk Radio, the problem that occurred last month at Cap Cities might have been prevented.
You should get a form letter from us, but we do not get into the activities of our investee companies. I mean, if people are unhappy about Coca-Cola or Gillette, and they shouldn't be, but if they happen to be, they should talk to the companies themselves. I don't interject myself into the management or operations of the investee companies. In terms of questions about Berkshire, I put in the annual report a few years back, just running Berkshire takes up a fair amount of time in terms of keeping track of a lot of businesses, and doesn't need to take up as much time as it does with me, but I enjoy it. But I feel that the annual report, the annual meeting, are the time to take up everything on shareholders' minds, and so I don't answer one-on-one questions. I get all kinds of letters. They want career guidance. They want advice on their business. I mean, there's a million letters that come in, and it would really be it would take a significant amount of time that otherwise would be spent on Berkshire to reply to that sort of thing. I may note them in terms of what I address in subsequent annual reports, but the annual meeting and the annual report, I feel, are the best ways to communicate with shareholders.